Hello and welcome to our 2020 Veterans Day ceremony. My name is Christopher Zarowski. I am the president of the Joint Veterans Council of Cuyahoga County. This afternoon we have a great program for you to celebrate the wonderful things that veterans do in and around the Cleveland area. Today is a special day where we recognize both our veterans and our citizens that have done excellent things to support our veterans communities and to celebrate the service they've done both here and overseas. I welcome you to join us and enjoy this afternoon's program. Thank you. As we begin our program, let us bow our heads for a moment of silence. God, remember all those who continue to serve. Remember those overseas that are currently deployed. Remember those that never came home, those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. Also, let us celebrate those that continue to serve today and those that have left the military but continue to serve the community and do great things for this great nation. Amen. I'd like to introduce the 57th Mayor of Cleveland, the Honorable Mayor Frank Jackson. He is a lifelong resident and Vietnam veteran who served in the Army. He's a graduate of Cleveland State University who also served as a prosecutor in the city of Cleveland. He was elected mayor in the 2004 election and took office in 2005 and has continued to serve this great city.
Hello, I'm Mayor Frank Jackson. Veterans Day is an opportunity for us to honor, thank, and celebrate all of those who have sacrificed for our country and thank them for their willingness to serve. I want to take this moment to remember our fallen veterans, and their sacrifice is why we are a free country today. Finally, I wish a safe return of all servicemen and women who are currently deployed. So again, I want to thank you for your service and happy Veterans Day.
Thank you, Mayor Jackson, for those motivational words. Our keynote speaker needs no introduction to most. Joe Meisner is a distinguished author, an attorney, and an entrepreneur. He served during the Vietnam War and continued his career all the way up the ranks to lieutenant colonel. He is a Clevelander who continues to serve this great city. I welcome Lieutenant Colonel retired Joe Meisner.
Let us begin with saluting our flag. Today we are remembering a specific date in history. Can you see all that, I hope? It's 11/11/11. That's the day of the armistice that ended World War I. It stands for the 11th month, the 11th day, and the 11th hour. The armistice ended the fighting of World War I. It was not a defeat for Germany, but it did end the fighting with an armistice. And then that was celebrated around the world. Here is the modern Bible for Americans, the New York Times, and you can see its headline for that day, Armistice Signed, End of the War. Also, around the world, crowds gathered, celebrating that this was the end of a terrible war which had gone on for over 4 years. Here's a picture of one of the crowds. To understand and appreciate the armistice from 1918, November 11th, we have to understand what went before it. It was the beginning of the 1900s. This was going to be the century of all sorts of advances. This new century, we would see people around the world conquering the air, the sea, and land. We felt we could do anything. Then came the terrible war, beginning in 1914. And that started in August of 1914, when the countries found themselves embroiled over a war involving Serbia and the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand. Some people say the war should never have taken place, and others have called it a stupid war. But on that day, in August of 2014, people everywhere, even including good socialists, celebrated that a war was about to begin. That terrible war went on for over 4 years. It was called the War to End Wars. Here was another card that showed the crowd celebrating. The war to end wars would mean everyone would no longer have to fight. 20 million, however, died in that war, and it was the worst war we've ever had in human history. I told my daughter, Bettina, that I was going to speak at this Remembrance event. She gave me 3 points to remember. Point 1, at the end of World War I, 4 great historic empires became nothing more than rubbish in history. The Ottoman Empire, where Turkey now is, the Russian Empire, centered around Moscow and St. Petersburg, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which had so many minorities within it and had the Habsburg monarchy ruling, and finally the German, which had colonies in Africa and also in Asia. All of that ended, my daughter told me. Second point she wanted me to remember is that the armistice marks the voices of people rising up to be heard. And what the people thought is that there was hope for the future. And that brings to the third point. What people were really hoping is that instead of killing each other, we could find a way to talk about our problems and resolve them mutually to our satisfaction. The armistice was meant to prevent greater conflicts from happening in the future, like World War I. I also discussed my speech with another person. He's a great veteran here in Cleveland, a great attorney, and our leader, Patrick McLaughlin. He also gave me 3 points like my daughter Bettina gave me to remember. The first is that this day, November 11th, we remember all who have served in our armed forces. And that gets me to the second point that Patrick said. There are 2 days we have in America when we talk about our veterans. One is May, Memorial Day, and the other is Veterans Day. We need to understand there is a difference. In May, we are remembering all those who died in various wars fighting for our country. We also have to remember that today is a different part of our legacy. And on this day, it's a celebration of pride for all. And that's all of our veterans, whether they're living or dead, or whether they served in a war necessarily, or simply kept up our forces here. Third point that Patrick wanted me to remember is that we acknowledge all serving now who will become our veterans in the future. They will become our legacy. And we should ask this question, especially with all that is going on in our cities now. Where would we be? Where would America be without our veterans' sacrifices? I'll give you a little brief history of Armistice Day. The day, of course, is November 11th, 1918. President Wilson in 1919 wanted this tradition to be carried on, and it was to commemorate World War I soldiers. In 1926, Congress got involved, and Congress said that they wanted to establish this date. And here, and I want you to pay particular attention to what Congress said, this day, quote, was to perpetuate peace through goodwill and mutual understanding between nations, unquote. In 1954, we expanded Veterans Day. At that point, it was still being called Armistice Day, which was the World War I remembrance. But there were other wars that had taken place, and so Congress expanded, and this was also due to President Eisenhower, expanded so the date would become Veterans Day, and therefore we would remember all veterans from all our wars. And the final date I want to give you is an interesting one, that on November 11th, 2018, that's 1 century after the World War I armistice, more than 60 government heads and leaders gathered in Paris at the Arc de Triomphe to remember Armistice Day and all the sacrifices from that war. We then get to the question that my daughter was hinting at. How did the world turn out with Armistice Day and those dates I gave you? You see, we may have in some way gotten the victory or at least solved the problem of the war. But that's not the end of anything. Who wins the peace? And that turns out to be even more crucial. So the soldiers whose lives were sacrificed and who came back battered and crippled for life, that their sacrifice meant something in terms of a better future. Well, unfortunately, the victorious Allies in World War I enacted the Versailles Treaty, and this treaty significantly punished Germany far beyond any blame that Germany should have for having been involved in the war. And of course, what happened with that is that a low-ranking soldier, who some say was a hero in World War I, became the Führer for World War II. And that led, of course, to World War II, in which 50 million in the world died. So that was one outcome, a sad one from Versailles. The second one is Russia itself. Russia itself tried the great social experiment of communism, a book entitled The Black Book of Communists, which covers the entire, from 1900 to the end of the century, counted up the toll, and the toll is that over 100 million human beings in every country of the world died due to communism. In the remembrance that we now have, we include Korea, and we also include other wars such as Vietnam. That country was conquered by the communists in 1975, and for 11 years, and these were smart people that were communists, tried to enact communism as a form of government and as their economic structure. By 1986, even the communists admitted their failure. People were starving in Vietnam, which formerly had grown surpluses of rice to be exported. The point is, communism doesn't work, and poor Vietnam is proof of that. I now pray to God today that on this day, we do not, and in the future, repeat what poor Vietnam had to suffer through. So how did the peace turn out? The record is that it turned out with a lot more people dying in the future, and we didn't get that peace that we so much wanted. There is, however, one little hopeful sign that we remember veterans by, and it's due to the red poppy. On a battlefield in Flanders, one of the major battlefields in France, Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae was a brigade surgeon, and he spotted a little cluster of poppies growing there in the middle of this battlefield, all torn up by all the weapons of war. Here's a little red poppy. Many people consider it a weed. You see, it's so tenacious that you really can't get rid of it. Poppy. And what did he do after seeing those poppies? Struck by this weedy, small, red flower, so tenacious in nature, he wrote a poem called On Flanders Field. That poem, a famous poem, begins, quote, "In Flanders field the poppies grow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place," unquote. In America, a woman named Mona Michael read this poem in Ladies' Home Journal, which was kind of the feminine Bible in those days, and on November 9th, 2 days before Armistice Day in 1918, she read the poem and made a resolution that she would wear that red poppy for the rest of her life. And then she wanted to spread that idea to America and around the world to wear that red poppy in remembrance. She also came up with the idea to sell those red poppies which were made so that money could be raised for the veterans who had returned home and needed help. She worked hard for her cause, and the National American Legion voted to use the poppy as the U.S. national emblem to remember the armistice. This was adopted by a vote of the American Legion when its members met where? In Cleveland, Ohio, in 1920, 100 years ago right now. And that's when the American Legion adopted by vote that the poppy would be our emblem. In France, another woman, Anna Guerin, took up the similar campaign. She wanted the poppy to be adopted by all nations, and she helped in England to hold the first poppy appeal. Poppies were sold, and over 100,000 pounds were raised to assist veterans. That was quite a sum for those days. And then the red poppy idea spread throughout the Commonwealth and other allied nations. It became a moneymaker. Millions of the silk flowers went toward finding employment and housing for the Great War veterans. Even a poppy factory was established where disabled servicemen found gainful employment making these. The poppy factory, by the way, still operates, and it does provide employment for veterans who need help. We then come back to the poppy and the fields of Flanders. And this poem ends this way. To you, from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. The end of the poem. So today, with the red poppy and all the dates I gave earlier, and the advice from my daughter and from our great Attorney Patrick McLaughlin, we celebrate Veterans Day. Veterans Day, here's a card for Veterans Day, and underneath it has, this year we celebrate our veterans. And of course, when you celebrate, you have to salute. So I will salute all of our veterans again and wish them all well. And I have one final card. We should salute all of our current soldiers. They're our future veterans. They are our real superheroes. Here, if you can see the card, all these superheroes, our soldiers, are taking off their shirts to show their emblems beneath. So what do we do today? We salute our superheroes. Today, November 11th, the year 2020. And we ask God, please bring about all those hopes that we had from Armistice Day in 1918, that we indeed can find a world where peace reigns and where people of all races and all creeds are able to talk over their problems and reach a peaceful solution. So again, I salute all of you, and thank you very much for being here today. Amen.
Thank you, Joe. We really appreciate those great words in the history lesson. Now, our next part of the program is where we get to recognize both an outstanding veteran and an outstanding citizen of our community. Both of these individuals have gone above and beyond to serve veterans and the local area. They have distinguished themselves by not only the number of hours, but the type of programs that they have accomplished. Our first awardee for the Judge Felix T. Mattia Outstanding Service Award is our veteran, Patricia Bubonics. She is a distinguished veteran who served during the Vietnam era. She took not only that service as a nurse, who served our veterans in the hospitals over here and throughout the country, but continued to serve in the community here in Cleveland. As an RN, she still works tirelessly to help. During her off time, she continues to serve on several boards, both in the American Legion, the VFW, and other veteran service organizations. I'd like to welcome our awardee, Patricia.
It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be the recipient of this award, Veteran of the Year. I'd like to thank my family for their love, their support, and their encouragement, and also Ken Milenovic, who submitted my name for this nomination. But most of all, I would like to accept this award on behalf of all the veterans who have given selflessly to give us the freedoms that we are celebrating today. Thank you so much, and thank you again.
Our citizen awardee for the Judge Felix T. Mattia Outstanding Service Award is Michael Bay. Michael Bay is a native Clevelander who grew up on the West Side. After high school, he attended Ohio State University for business. He returned back to Cleveland and continued his education as a firefighter. Michael's continued to serve in the Cleveland area as a Cleveland firefighter and has done numerous things for the community. During his off time, Mike dedicates most of his time to the veterans of VFW Post 2133 in Cleveland. He tirelessly leads projects to redevelop the local area and serve the veterans, not just at his post, but throughout the Cleveland area. Michael, we really appreciate your work and thank you.
Hello, I just want to thank Chris Zarowski, Scott Rhoda, for nominating me for the Civilian of the Year award. I don't really do awards very well, but I really want to thank those guys. I appreciate it. And I'd like to thank our VFW 2133, which allows myself and others to go out there and help people all year long. Thanks, guys.
I'd like to thank both our awardees for their continued service. We're really proud of you, and so is the city of Cleveland and the county of Cuyahoga. Let me introduce to you Rickdeshaunt, the executive director of Neopat. the Northeast Ohio Foundation of Patriotism. He is their executive director and a retired lieutenant commander from the U.S. Coast Guard.
Good day to everyone. I'm Rickdeshaunt, Executive Director of the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism and a Coast Guard combat veteran. I'd like to begin by saying to all the veterans in Northeast Ohio, my fellow veterans, thank you for your service, and thank you to your families for their service as well. I'd also like to extend on behalf of NeoPAT a special thank you to Mayor Jackson and the City of Cleveland administration. This has been a difficult year. We weren't sure we'd be able to do a Veterans Day ceremony, yet you've made this opportunity happen virtually, and we thank you for that. Who is NeoPAT? The Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism has been around for 10 years now in Northeast Ohio. Our primary missions fall into 4 areas of support: direct military assistance, financial assistance to military families in need. We support patriotic educational outreach events. We also conduct remembrance events. Sad to say, Ohio, since 9/11, now has 302 Gold Star families. We make sure they're not forgotten. And then there are events like today. Education outreach and support is also critical to NeoPAT to ensure that our veterans and their military families get what they need to help in the way of education success. And that's why today we at NeoPAT are proud to be a name sponsor in recognizing the Cuyahoga Community College 2020 Student Veteran of the Year, Olivia Rose Rodriguez. If you look at her bio, outstanding academically, but what's even more important, she is an U.S. Army combat medic who is still serving today in the reserves and giving back. At Cleveland State University, we are proud to honor Brandon Lorenzo Thompson, a United States Air Force veteran of 9 years, also academically engaged and successful at Cleveland State University. And we're proud to honor these 2 students because they represent what veterans bring to a community, and it is our sincerest hope that both Olivia and Brandon, following their academic careers, return and remain in Cleveland. We need you. We need your talent. And so again, on behalf of the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism, congratulations to Olivia and Brandon, and thank you to all for allowing NeoPAT to participate as a sponsor in today's ceremony.
Hi, I'm Olivia Rodriguez, Tri-C alumni, and I would like to thank faculty and staff for the honor of nominating me for Cleveland's Veteran of the Year Award. Thank you to Mayor Frank Jackson and the City of Cleveland for making the virtual ceremony possible despite COVID. And lastly, thank you to Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism for its support of veterans, education, and this award.
Cuyahoga Community College, Tri-C, has a proud history of supporting the dedicated men and women who have served in the United States Armed Forces. Since 1973, the college, Tri-C, has provided veteran-specific programming to support the educational endeavors of these individuals who have served or who are serving our great nation. These service members and their families have shown profound dedication to their commitment of service. Today, we're pleased to recognize one such student, Olivia Rodriguez, as Tri-C's 2020 Student Veteran of the Year. Congratulations, Olivia.
This is absolutely amazing. I am honored to accept this award. The last year has been very difficult for all of us, and I'm just so thankful that we were still able to achieve some success. First off, I want to thank my mother, my father, my stepfather, and my stepmother. Without the 4 of them in my corner for my whole life, I would not be the person that's in front of you today. I want to thank my director, Joshua Burns, the Veteran and Military Success Center staff. Without each and every one of them, this would not have been possible. I want to thank Cleveland State University for the honor. I want to thank Mayor Frank Jackson and the City of Cleveland for still making this happen with respect to the pandemic. And finally, I would like to thank the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism for its continued support of student veterans and for awarding me this. Thank you very much.
As we come to close, let us conclude with the benediction. Lord, bless those soldiers that continue to serve and all the military that are overseas protecting this great nation. Bless those veterans that came home, and especially those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. Continue to watch over the families of those both who lost somebody and those who did come home but continue to suffer. Allow us the great opportunity to continue to serve in our community and this great nation. We thank you for all these opportunities. Amen. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the special occasion, especially to the veterans and their families. We salute you. Thank you, Mayor Jackson, for allowing us this opportunity from you and your staff to be able to do such a program. Special thanks also goes out to the city of Cleveland and its residents. We also thank the community and the local area for all your support and continued support for our veterans and their spouses. We appreciate all that you do for us. Thank you.